Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new and you like to hear about opinions, reviews, and analyses on films, books, and TV shows, be sure to hit that subscribe button for more content from me. Today's video will be my review on Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This film is the latest installment in the MCU and the latest to tackle the concept of the multiverse. I have a lot of thoughts on this film, thoughts that aren't spoiler free, so you'd have to wait till the second part of this video. But first, let's begin with a spoiler-free review. Since the release of No Way Home, Multiverse of Madness has been greatly hyped. So much so that instead of doing a post-credits scene in No Way Home, they dropped a teaser for Multiverse of Madness. That being said, the film was overhyped. The film fell victim to terrible script writing. The narrative was all over the place, and there was too much going on, and it didn't feel like a solo character film. There were some minor character development going on, but not much. That is particularly shocking for me since Phase 4 has been so good with character development in other projects like Moon Knight, Shang-Chi, and No Way Home, to name a few. It didn't feel like a Phase 4 project. That being said, I will give praise where praise is due, and that is with the visuals and the acting. The visuals were absolutely stunning in this film. My brother and I discussed Sam Raimi's directing techniques and strengths, and we agreed that his strengths were in the cinematography and the editing. Like, I genuinely felt like I was watching a horror film because of the camera movements and the editing. Also, bless Sam Raimi and lighting. Like, even when it's dark and using low lighting, the man still knows how to keep a scene lit enough that I don't have to squint at the screen to figure out what was going on. He's very good at building the tension like in a horror film, and there were a few jump scares that actually surprised me. So the horror elements were spot on. I mentioned that the acting was one of the saving graces of this film, and that's thanks to Benedict Cumberbatch and Elizabeth Olsen. The trailers hinted at a Strange versus Strange variant fight, and it's interesting watching Benedict Cumberbatch play multiple versions of his character. Elizabeth Olsen absolutely blew me away with her acting. Like Benedict, she adds little nuances to Wanda's character. She's got the head tilt, and with Benedict, he still keeps the hand tremors that were a result of Stephen's accident. So overall, the narrative was at a 5.5 or a 6 out of 10 if I'm feeling generous, but the visuals and the acting were an 8.5 and were the only saving graces of the film. Now, I'll go more in depth about my thoughts and reactions to specific things in the film. So this part contains major spoilers for the film, so if you haven't watched it yet, skip this part of the video. I was originally hyped for America because there's a build-up to Young Avengers, which I've been looking forward to, but she felt more like a plot device than a fully fleshed character. Like, I get it, this is her debut in the MCU, but she doesn't do much until the end, and the film only very briefly touches on her tragic backstory. And by brief, I mean like one scene. In terms of Wanda as the film's villain, it's an interesting concept since it's implied that her becoming a villain was due to the Darkhold corruption, but it felt like it came out of nowhere at the same time. Last we saw her, she was reading the Darkhold and moved far away from the rest of civilization. There's no hints or build up to her being the villain except that she read the Darkhold. It's like they just conveniently chose her to be the villain again. Also, her ending in the film was poorly written. It's implied that she's dead, but we never saw that body, so we can't be sure. And as we know in the MCU, the person ain't dead till you see their dead body on the screen. Side note, I was gonna riot if they killed Wong, but I had hoped they didn't because we didn't see his dead body. And it turns out he did live, so yeah, don't think someone's dead till you see the dead body on screen. Anyway, back to Wanda. I was initially confused because I thought she was a Nexus being, aka the only one, but then there's multiple Wandas in various universes. I learned from my brothers that technically it just means there's one Scarlet Witch, but there can be multiple Wandas who aren't the Scarlet Witch. That being said, Wanda's motivation as a villain was lacking. Why kill America when you can just ask her if she can help you find a universe to live in? Another gripe I have about this film was the Illuminati cameo. It was completely and utterly useless. It was done as fan service, but unlike Toby Peter, Andrew Peter, and Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock, the fan service was not done tastefully. Like, what's the point of introducing them only to kill them off immediately after? I will admit that I greatly enjoyed the blood and gore in that scene when Wanda killed them all off, because I've never seen that much blood before in a Marvel film. But rest in peace, John Krasinski, Reed Richards, you will be missed. This cameo actually reminded me of a passage from Adorno and Horkheimer, theorists who explained the concept of the culture industry. They said that, and I'm paraphrasing here, the culture industry continuously cheats the consumer out of what it promises. Marvel did this. You were not only promised the Illuminati introduction, but you were cheated because they were killed off almost immediately after. Also, the purpose of the Illuminati, apart from gratuitous fan service, was to make them an obstacle to delay Stephen from achieving his goal of protecting America, dragging out this film to make you sit through it. The main thing that this film is supposed to center on is the multiverse. We've touched upon the concept in Loki, we were introduced to it in No Way Home, but the multiverse in this film was just disappointing. Like, I loved the execution of the multiverse in No Way Home, and I personally felt like it peaked there. It almost feels like a cop-out since they used the multiverse in this film to just introduce cheap cameos. I have so many criticisms about this film, and the main thing is that it didn't focus enough on its titular character. It's a Doctor Strange film, and there's not enough Stephen Strange background or character study. We don't really see the full extent of him wrestling with guilt or PTSD after Thanos and making the decision that affected the lives of everyone in the universe. And the most we got about his background was a mention of his dead sibling, who presumably inspired him to become a doctor so he can save others. Compare this film to the first Doctor Strange film, and I can speak on that because I did like a project in 12th grade English and had to watch a film multiple times. But that film had so much more character development with Stephen. Here, there's not much. Sure, he admits his love for Christine's variant before letting her go. And side note, that love confession was everything, and it made me tear up a little bit. The film ends with more room for Strange's development since we have yet to see the full effects of his interaction with the Darkhold. And I've spent a good chunk of this part basically ragging on everything I didn't like about this film, but there are some things I did love that made it slightly more enjoyable. One of my favorite scenes was the Strange versus Strange fight in the Sanctum. The fight with the musical notes was awesome. Using the score and combining that with the visual effects was genius. Like, you hear the music building up the tension and physically see the notes on the screen. Like, it was so cool. Ed had mentioned in the previous part that I was absolutely in love with the visuals, specifically the horror film vibes, especially the scene where Wanda kills the members of the Illuminati. It was horrifying, but you can't stop watching. How she split Agent Carter in half with her own shield, turned Reed into string cheese or whatever, making Black Bolt's head explode and killing Professor X mentally. I'm not usually a horror film fan because I'm a scaredy cat, but I was on the edge of my seat and absolutely blown away with the horror elements. Sam Raimi definitely had a lot of say in the development of the film's style, and I would absolutely love to see more of like horror superhero combination films because it works. At least because Sam Raimi knew what he was doing. Overall, the film missed the mark with the execution of the multiverse concept, and it lacked character development as a result of messy script writing. Benedict Cumberbatch and Elizabeth Olsen were phenomenal despite the material they were given. Sam Raimi's visuals were amazing and the only thing that made the film enjoyable to watch. I genuinely hope they do better with Doctor Strange 3 and give Stephen proper characterization and hire a better scriptwriter, preferably one who understands consistent characterization. And that's a wrap on Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. My next video is going to be up by the end of May, and it will be on the love hypothesis. Thank you so much for watching, and please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe.